guys, welcome to another video. Today I have my boyfriend Connor, and he's gonna be doing this application video with me. Even though we applied together and at the same time, we both had kind of different approaches to the way that we did the application, so I thought it'd be good to have both of us here. The application process is really long. It opens in May for AMCAS. I think, does AACOMAS open in May too?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Well, they open to...
It might open in April.
Okay. I think I definitely started working on it in May. You can't submit it until June, but at least it's open and you can start going through the process because there's a lot of questions and a lot of fill in the blanks type stuff. I do, however, suggest that you start working on your personal statement ahead of time, your letters ahead of time, and you're gonna have to like write a lot for each activity, so I kind of started working on that ahead of time. The biggest thing is the personal statement because it's really long and you can just look online to see the character count. I don't remember the character count off the top of my head.
I know that the AACOMAS is shorter than AMCAS.
Yeah, so if you're doing both, I wrote mine for AACOMAS and then was just able to do it for AMCAS because it's just easier that way.
It's always easier to add extra fluff later than it is to take it out.
Yeah. But I would say start writing your personal statement with enough time that when May gets there, you're like, done, my personal statement's good, I can just work on everything else now, because that's gonna be a big part. It doesn't seem like it, like I thought I had it together, but it's a lot because this is your major selling point.
One of the best times to write the personal statement is if you've had, like if you've just recently had like an impactful event or experience. Shortly after that, if you think that that's a big contributing reason as to why you want to be a doctor, go ahead and just start writing. You don't even have to write down like in sentences, you can just write down ideas and feelings from that experience. So that you really get like the raw emotion, because that type of emotion is what is going to stand out. Also, the earlier you do it, the better, because you may end up completely changing it. I think we've known multiple people who have completely changed their personal statement multiple times. So the earlier that you start, when you have to change it, you have plenty of time.
And a second important factor in your whole applications is letters. So I think it's really, really important for you to build connections throughout your undergrad career. And if you're hitting a point towards the end where you are getting ready to apply and you don't know if you've made those connections, start building them now. Like, you still have time, so start building some now. I got one of my letters in one of the last classes that I took. I ended up making a connection with that professor where I was able to ask him for a letter, and it was not short notice, but it was still one of the last classes I took in undergrad. So you have time. You don't have to do it from like the first gen ed classes that you've taken. Ask early, because your professors or the doctors or your lead person in research, they have a lot going on, and writing a letter is a lot of responsibility. It takes a lot of time. So ask early. In my experience, I've worked with professors that have wrote my letters, and I think with them, I asked them during the end of the term. So if we were nearing finals, I would usually go into the office and ask them and say, hey, you know, I'm going to be applying to medical school. Do you think that when that time comes, you'd be willing to write me a letter? I always do it I did it face to face because I felt like that was more personal than sending an email. And also, if you're asking them for a letter, you should have been at office hours. You should have been asking questions in class. You should have been present and not absent all the time. Like, they'll be familiar enough with your face. So you go in and ask for your letter and just, you know, let them know you're asking ahead, and then keep them updated. So one of my letter writers was Orgo 1. I kept her updated through Orgo 2, through Biochem, and then Pass. Like, I was constantly in contact with her, talking to her. I didn't want it to be like, yeah, I asked you for a letter, Orgo 1. Now I'm not going to talk to you, and then I'm going to come back a year later and say, like, here's my official request. So I kept in contact with them, and then they got the official request for my letter, and it was a little easier for them because they were prepared, and they knew what to do, and they knew me well enough to do that.
Especially if you guys are at big universities.
Yeah.
I know that it's hard to, you know, get that like intimate one-on-one time with people, but it doesn't take that much. If you're in a class of 300 people, you know, you sit towards the front, and it can be as little as just answering a few questions every other class when the professor asks a question. Chances are 250 out of 300 people are probably playing on their phone or doing homework for another class. So if you're showing that you're paying attention and either asking a question or answering the question that they're asking, you know, sometimes that's all it takes.
On the topic of letters, they say to get 2 science, 1 non-science, 1 from a doctor that you've shadowed, and then I call it a character letter, but it's pretty much just an extra letter from anybody. It could be a boss if you're working. Preferably somebody above you. Like, I wouldn't have asked Connor to write me a letter for my last letter because they're gonna be like, okay, we were on an executive board together, so that's cool, but that doesn't really tell me much. I could have asked the advisor for our pre-med committee, and he could have wrote me the letter and it would have been good and that would have added my extra, but not like a peer. You don't want it to be at the same level. You want it to be someone above you.
But I mean, the 5th is like a bonus letter. So if you can meet the first 4, the 2 science, non-science, and then the doctor.
Yeah.
Personally, I only applied with 4 letters. I tried to get a 5th letter. It was one of the doctors I work with, and I asked and asked and asked, and it just was like, oh yeah, I'll do it. And then a couple weeks later, oh yeah, I'll do it. So it goes back to Yasmin's point of definitely ask early. And from personal experience, it doesn't take that long to feel very annoying where you're emailing them every 2 weeks like, oh hey, just checking in, did you get a chance to write my letter? No, it'll be fine. But as with anything in this video, always just double check with the schools that you're applying to and see what their minimum requirements are.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that's what's going to be the guiding factor in what you need.
To elaborate a little bit, I mean, you can check up on, I think MCAS and Oklamas have their own thing where it says like, this is science, this is non-science, but science is like actual like chem, orgo, anatomy, physio, microbiome, those types of classes. I got mine from my orgo professor and physiology professor, and then non-science is anything else. So mine was the epidemiology of chronic diseases, and that, even though you would think it would count as a science, that's not considered a science. His non-science was what?
Nutrition.
Right, and you would think that might fall under science, but no. So just make sure you're checking that your letter writers are going to fall into certain categories, so you don't just start asking, even though like if you have 3 science, that's cool, that can count as your last letter, but you still need a non-science. Like if you're in a creative writing class, you could ask that professor because they want to see like how you interact and how you perform in a class that's not a core class for them type of thing.
And this may be something that you want to think about earlier on, especially for you guys who are taking like really intense sciencey majors, because you're probably going to breeze through your non-science classes really early on. And then you're going to be like, oh crap, I don't have any non-science classes left. Where am I going to get these letters from? And you're going to have to go back into someone's office who you haven't seen since freshman year and be like, oh hey, do you remember me? And they're like, who in the world are you? So that's just something to keep in mind for you guys who are like super science heavy.
So for letters, I know this is like a really long part, but letters make up a big part of your application. We went to UCF. So they offered... The Office of Pre-Health offers a letters packet, and I know they don't offer this at all schools, so you know Connor's going to give you a different point of view, but I used the letters packet from our office, and it opened up pretty early in the cycle because you have to put in like who's writing your letters, you have to give them, or you have the option to give them an autobiography, and the autobiography is just like extra. So I tell people who are at UCF who ask, definitely do the autobiography because it kind of just gives you an extra room to talk about yourself, something that they might not know, that they won't read on your application or your personal statement. And then the office asks for like a headshot so they can have it. And basically they do all the work for you. So you sign a waiver saying, I'm not going to look at the letters, I won't see the letters. They get the packet and then they send requests to their letter writers. So they'll say like, this person, you know, asked for this. So then the letter writer can send the letter back to the Office of Pre-Health. The Office of Pre-Health combines this, like puts together this nice little packet. It has your autobiography, all your letters. I think there's like a survey for the letter writers to do or something like that. And then they put it all together. They send it off to the server, to Comas or AMCAS. Their application is complete and you don't have to stress or worry about it anymore. I really liked it because I really liked the opportunity to add more, because I felt like I had more to my story that I couldn't put in my personal statement or anywhere in my application. and I didn't have to worry about my letters. They gave us like a login to a web courses, which is like an online thing, and they'd let you know like this person completed the letter, this person has not completed the letter, so that you could email that letter writer and kind of give them that kick to write your letter. But I felt like the letters packet worked really well for me.
And for those of you that are not as proactive as Yasmin or don't have like the luxury of a letters packet, it is not that bad to do it on your own. I personally was not as proactive and did not use the letters packet. I ended up submitting my letters on my own, and it really wasn't that big of a deal. It does take a little extra footwork. Pretty much the only difference is instead of having your school contact your letter writers and sending them the submission link, you just type in their email on the server, whether it's AACOMAS or AMCAS, and then that the portal sends them the link, and then they just submit it through that instead of the link from the school. So the only thing is that the letters packet was nice because it only sent one link. So if you are planning on applying to osteopathic and allopathic schools, you're gonna have to give your letter writers a heads up, like, hey, sorry, but you're gonna have to submit it twice. But other than that, it really wasn't that bad. And actually, I stole this from Yasmin. She had like typed up this nice little thing that we both gave to each of our letter writers.
Oh, the request.
Yeah, it was like, hey, I'm applying to medical school. You know, part of the process is I need a letter of recommendation, in addition to all the other things that, you know, you guys know that we need. She included like a couple brief highlights, like some of the main things that were on her application. So I think it was like some of the volunteering, some of the research. And it was just a heads up, like you will receive a link or 2 links that you'll just have to submit the letter through. I thought that worked out awesome.
Another thing to keep in mind for your applications is GPA and MCAT. I don't want to sound like I'm trying to be rude or anything, but
we're gonna keep it real here, guys.
Yeah. I'm not talking about scores because remember, that's something that we're doing on this channel. We're not mentioning numbers, but for yourself, you want to keep in mind your GPA and your MCAT. So when you're making your list, try to keep it within what's working for you. So research those schools, see what their average was last year for GPA and MCAT. Look at your GPA, look at your MCAT, and if you're making a list of 15 schools, you want at least, I would say at least 10 to 12 of those schools to
12. You want at least 12.
To be within that range. And then have reach schools, of course. Like, that's fine. Because who knows, so your application could be bomb. Like your application as a whole could be bomb. You could have done great things in research, like amazing, stand out and everything else. So who cares what your GPA or MCAT is type of thing, like that's fine. But I'm telling you, like it's a big thing. And applications are expensive, so you don't want to send money to schools who might not look at your application. Because unfortunately that's how it goes. Some places they'll look at the minimum. So if you've hit like a 499 or over, like okay, that's the minimum, they're gonna look at you. And that's great, but some schools don't do that. So you just want to keep that in mind.
Like if you have a school that you really want to go to, and if your numbers don't match, like don't not apply, especially if you're like dead set on at least trying. Like never don't try.
Okay, lastly, a big part of your applications are your secondaries. Why? Because you can submit 30 primary applications, but if you only submit 10 secondaries, then you just wasted money for 20 applications that are not going to get looked at. They will not look at you if you did not do your secondaries. So biggest thing for secondaries, biggest and only thing I really have for you, because every secondary is different in its own way, make a list, track it 2 weeks at a time. What I mean by that is, let's say you check your email on Monday, you have a secondary sitting in your inbox. You write the school's name on a list. I think he dated the date that it came in.
I did.
I didn't, because in my email I had a specific folder for secondary applications, so I would just click that and then I would see the email and the date. So the school, and then let's say Wednesday you open it up, you have 2 now from Wednesday, so now you add 2 to your list. Now you have 3 on your list. So as soon as you start working on those, the first one you should be working on is the first one that you got. And what I mean by 2-week timer is, when you get that email, it doesn't matter when you open it. You got it on Monday, you open it on Saturday, you've almost missed a week. There's a 2-week timer on those applications. It's not like make or break, because I submitted some of my secondaries about a month after opening, which was fine, But the earlier you get them in within those 2 weeks, it's like you've completed their application early. You know what I'm saying? Like they see the urgency, they see that you're good, you're willing. Also, it's less for you because if you let them pile up, it becomes a lot, especially if you're applying to a lot of schools. So for me, and I know we both tried to do this, we really tried to do it within 2 weeks. It is really hard. Like I was working, he was
Very
working.
hard.
Some of these secondaries ask for a lot, and that's okay if you can't do it within 2 weeks, but you should be aiming to do it within 2 weeks. That's gonna give you the most benefit for the whole application.
Yeah, I think pretty much 2 weeks is like your gold standard. I would say a month is your silver standard, and then a month and a half is like your bronze standard. It shows them that you want to go there. So like if you like crush it and you can submit it the next day, the school's like, wow, this guy really wants to go here, or this girl really wants to
And
go
you get
here.
interviews early. So that's pretty much all we have for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed that I kind of put a 2-person thing in here. We are like completely different people. I mean, we're, you know, good together, been dating for a long enough time to know that we're good, but we have 2 different approaches to things. So I thought that it would be a good idea to bring him in and give his point of view, because he's more like laid back and chill, and I didn't use letters packet, and I'm more like, oh my god, have to prepare. So I hope this worked out for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, but you can hit the little bell after you subscribe and like to stay tuned for when there is another video. Okay, thank you. We kind of have different
All right.
even though we had a bit, you're going into some, no, I just can't do that.